Part 1. Chapter 1. The Man Who Asked a Different Question. Most people spend their lives asking one question. How can I become successful? They search for better strategies. They look for shortcuts. They study the habits of millionaires. They chase the newest opportunity, hoping it will finally change their lives. But Charlie Munger asked a completely different question. How can I avoid becoming a fool? At first, that sounds almost disappointing. Where is the excitement? Where is the secret formula? Where is the promise of overnight success? There wasn't one. Charlie Munger believed that extraordinary results rarely come from extraordinary brilliance. Instead, they come from consistently avoiding ordinary mistakes. That simple idea changed not only his own life, but also the investing philosophy of Warren Buffett and Berkshire Hathaway. It became one of the most powerful mental frameworks in modern business history. And perhaps the most surprising part is this. Anyone can learn it. You don't need a genius-level IQ. You don't need perfect timing. You don't need to predict the future. You simply need to think a little more clearly than yesterday. That sounds simple, but as Charlie Munger often reminded people, simple is not the same as easy. Chapter 2. Wisdom over Intelligence. Many people assume Charlie Munger succeeded because he was incredibly intelligent. He certainly was. But intelligence alone never impressed him. He had seen brilliant people destroy their careers through arrogance. He had watched highly educated investors lose fortunes because they couldn't control their emotions. He believed that knowledge without judgment could become dangerous. Real wisdom wasn't about knowing more facts. It was about making better decisions. Every day, the world offers thousands of choices. Some are small. Some are life-changing. The quality of those choices quietly shapes the direction of our future. Charlie believed that success was rarely built on one spectacular decision. It was built on hundreds of thoughtful decisions made consistently over many years. Just as compound interest grows wealth, good judgment compounds into a remarkable life. Charlie Munger. The Psychology of Better Thinking. Part 2. Chapter 3. A Latticework of Mental Models. Charlie Munger believed that one of the greatest mistakes people make is trying to solve every problem using only one way of thinking. Imagine a carpenter who owns only a hammer. Soon, every problem begins to look like a nail. A loose screw? Use the hammer. A cracked window? Use the hammer. A broken watch? Use the hammer. The tool itself is not the problem. The problem is believing that one tool is enough for every situation. Charlie saw this same mistake everywhere. In business, investing, politics, education, and even everyday life. People became experts in one field and then tried to explain the entire world through that single perspective. Economists saw economics. Engineers saw engineering. Lawyers saw legal problems. Psychologists saw human behavior. Each understood an important piece of reality, but no one understood the entire picture. Charlie believed true wisdom came from building what he called a latticework of mental models. Instead of depending on one discipline, he borrowed the best ideas from many. Mathematics, physics, biology, psychology, history, business, economics, engineering. Each field offered another lens through which to understand reality. The more lenses you possessed, the fewer blind spots remained. He once said that the world is far too complicated to understand through a single discipline. Life rewards those who learn continuously. Knowledge from one field often explains problems in another. That is why Charlie spent his life reading. Not because he wanted to collect facts, because he wanted to build a better map of reality. Every book became another brick in that latticework. Every lesson strengthened his judgment. And every new idea gave him another way to avoid costly mistakes. Chapter 4. Read more than everyone else. People often ask Charlie Munger how he became so wise. They expected him to reveal some hidden secret. Instead, his answers sounded almost too simple. He read every day, hour after hour, year after year. He once joked that he had never met a truly wise person who didn't read constantly. Think about that for a moment. In a world obsessed with speed, Charlie slowed down. While others chased breaking news, he studied timeless ideas. While others searched for shortcuts, He quietly filled his mind with knowledge. His reading wasn't limited to investing. He read biographies, history, science, medicine, military strategy, human psychology, philosophy, business, even subjects that appeared completely unrelated. Because Charlie understood something that many people overlook. Great ideas connect. A lesson from biology might explain a business. A lesson from history might explain today's markets. A lesson from psychology might explain why investors panic. Knowledge compounds just like money. One idea connects with another, then another. Eventually, understanding grows far beyond the sum of its individual parts. That is why Charlie believed reading was one of the highest return investments anyone could make. No market crash can erase it. No recession can take it away. The knowledge stays with you for life. Chapter 5. The Power of Inversion. Perhaps Charlie Munger's most famous thinking tool came from a surprisingly simple idea. Instead of asking, "How do I succeed?" he asked, "How do I fail?" At first, this sounds negative, but it is actually one of the most practical ways to think. Imagine you want to build wealth. Most people ask, "What investments will make me rich?" Charlie asked something different. What habits almost guarantee financial failure? Overspending, emotional investing, borrowing too much money, ignoring risk, refusing to learn. If you consistently avoid those mistakes, success often follows naturally. The same principle applies everywhere. Want a healthy marriage? Ask what destroys relationships. Want a successful business? Study why businesses collapse. Want to become a better investor? Study the mistakes that wipe investors out. Charlie loved this idea because avoiding disaster is often easier than predicting success. Life becomes much simpler when you remove obvious errors before chasing extraordinary achievements. As he famously liked to say, "All I want to know is where I'm going to die, so I'll never go there." It was humorous, but beneath the humor was profound wisdom. Avoid stupidity first. Success often takes care of itself. Chapter 6. Patience is an advantage. Modern society rewards speed. Faster internet, faster communication, faster decisions. Everyone wants immediate results. Charlie Munger quietly walked in the opposite direction. He believed patience was becoming increasingly rare. And because it was rare, it had become incredibly valuable. Many investors lose money not because they lack intelligence, but because they cannot wait. They become restless. They feel they must always be doing something. Buying, selling, changing strategies, watching every market movement. Charlie believed this constant activity created unnecessary mistakes. Sometimes the highest return comes from doing absolutely nothing. Waiting, observing, thinking. The best opportunities do not appear every day. They appear occasionally. When they do, you must be ready, patient enough to wait, confident enough to act, disciplined enough to ignore everything else. This idea connected perfectly with Warren Buffett's philosophy. The stock market does not reward constant activity. It rewards intelligent decisions. And intelligent decisions often require extraordinary patience. Charlie never confused motion with progress. He understood that staying still at the right moment could be the wisest decision of all. That lesson applies far beyond investing. Sometimes the greatest progress in life comes not from moving faster, but from thinking more deeply before taking the next step. Charlie Munger, The Psychology of Better Thinking. Part 3. Chapter 7. Why Smart People Make Foolish Decisions. Charlie Munger spent decades studying a question that fascinated him. Why do intelligent people make incredibly poor decisions? It wasn't because they lacked knowledge. It wasn't because they lacked experience. More often than not, it was because they misunderstood themselves. Charlie believed that the human mind is powerful, but it is far from perfect. Our brains evolved to help us survive, not necessarily to help us make flawless financial decisions. They rely on shortcuts. They react emotionally. They seek comfort, certainty, and approval from others. These instincts were useful thousands of years ago, but in modern investing, they can become expensive liabilities. That is why two people can look at the same company, the same financial statements, and the same market conditions, yet reach completely different conclusions. The difference is rarely information. The difference is psychology. Charlie often reminded people that understanding human nature is just as important as understanding business. If you cannot recognize your own weaknesses, you will repeat them again and again. The market has an uncanny way of exposing the mistakes we refuse to acknowledge. The investor who blames everyone else never improves. The investor who studies himself grows wiser with every mistake. That was Charlie's approach. Before trying to understand the market, understand yourself. Chapter 8. Incentives shape everything. One of Charlie Munger's favorite observations was remarkably simple. Show me the incentive, and I'll show you the outcome. Those words became one of his most quoted ideas because they explain so much about the world around us. People respond to incentives. Employees, executives, politicians, customers, investors, even we ourselves. When you understand what motivates someone, their behavior often becomes much easier to predict. Imagine a salesperson who earns a commission every time a product is sold. Should you expect them to recommend only what is best for you? Perhaps. But you should also recognize that they have an incentive to make a sale. Charlie wasn't saying people are dishonest. He was saying that incentives quietly influence decisions, often without people realizing it themselves. The same principle applies to investing. Financial television benefits from constant excitement. News headlines reward urgency. Social media rewards bold predictions. Few people are rewarded for saying, "Nothing interesting happened today. Be patient." Yet patience is often the most profitable decision an investor can make. Charlie trained himself to look beneath appearances. Whenever he encountered a decision, he asked, "What incentives are operating here?" That one question often revealed the truth hidden beneath the surface. Chapter 9. The courage to say, I don't know. Modern culture celebrates confidence. People admire those who speak with certainty. They want experts who appear to have all the answers. Charlie Munger was different. He was comfortable saying 3 simple words. I don't know. To some, those words sound like weakness. To Charlie, they were a sign of intellectual honesty. He understood that pretending to know something is far more dangerous than admitting uncertainty. The world is filled with complexity. No one understands everything. The wisest people recognize the limits of their knowledge. Charlie called this staying within your circle of competence. Know what you know. Know what you do not know. And most importantly, know the difference. This simple principle protected him from countless costly mistakes. He never felt pressured to invest in businesses he did not understand. He never chased opportunities simply because everyone else seemed excited. If something fell outside his circle of competence, he patiently waited. There would always be another opportunity. The market rewards discipline, not ego. Chapter 10. Lifelong learning. Charlie Munger often joked that he was still learning every single day. The remarkable thing was, he meant it. Even in his later years, after decades of extraordinary success, he remained curious. He continued reading, continued asking questions, continued challenging his own assumptions. Many people stop learning once they become successful. Charlie believed that was the beginning of decline. The world changes. Technology changes. Businesses evolve. Human behavior stays surprisingly similar, but the environment around it never stops moving. To remain wise, you must remain teachable. Charlie never believed he had reached the finish line. He believed learning itself was the journey. Every book added another perspective. Every mistake revealed another lesson. Every conversation became another opportunity to improve. That mindset allowed him to keep growing while many others became trapped by their own certainty. Humility became one of his greatest competitive advantages, not because it made him timid, but because it kept his mind open. The person who believes they already know everything has stopped growing. The person who remains curious never truly grows old. Charlie proved that wisdom is not measured by age alone. It is measured by the willingness to keep learning long after others have stopped. Chapter 11. Thinking independently. One of the rarest qualities Charlie Munger admired was independent thinking. not being different simply for the sake of being different, but having the courage to follow evidence instead of the crowd. History is filled with examples of intelligent people making poor decisions simply because everyone else was doing the same thing. Markets rise. Excitement spreads. People become convinced that prices can only go higher. Then reality returns. The opposite happens during periods of fear. People sell because everyone else is selling. Charlie understood that crowds often magnify emotions. Fear becomes panic. Optimism becomes euphoria. Neither state produces clear thinking. The independent thinker steps back. He asks questions. He studies facts. He waits for evidence. He refuses to let popular opinion replace careful judgment. This did not mean Charlie ignored other people. Far from it. He listened carefully, but he made his own conclusions. He understood that agreement does not make something true, and disagreement does not make something false. Reality is not determined by a show of hands. It is determined by facts. That lesson may be one of the most valuable gifts Charlie Munger left behind. Because in a noisy world, the ability to think quietly for yourself has become increasingly rare. Charlie Munger, The Psychology of Better Thinking. Part 4. Chapter 12. Reputation, a fortune that cannot be bought. Charlie Munger often spoke about wealth, but not the kind most people immediately think of. Money can be earned. Money can be invested. Money can even be lost and earned again. Reputation is different. It takes decades to build. It can disappear in a single moment. Charlie believed your reputation was one of your greatest assets. Not because it made you famous, because it earned trust. People want to work with those they trust. They want to invest alongside those they trust. They want to build businesses with those whose word means something. Charlie never believed that success justified dishonest behavior. Quite the opposite. He believed that success built on weak character was destined to collapse. He once observed that if you consistently tell the truth, keep your promises, and treat people fairly, remarkable opportunities begin to appear over time. Not overnight, over years. Trust compounds just as money compounds. Each honest decision becomes another brick in a foundation that grows stronger with time. That kind of wealth cannot be measured on a balance sheet, yet it often proves more valuable than anything listed there. Chapter 13. The Extraordinary Power of Saying No. Modern life constantly encourages us to do more. More meetings, more investments, more projects, more opportunities. Charlie Munger believed that one of the greatest advantages in life came from doing less. Not because he lacked ambition, because he understood focus. Every time you say yes to something, you're quietly saying no to something else. Time is limited. Energy is limited. Attention is limited. The wisest people guard these resources carefully. Charlie admired people who could patiently wait for the right opportunity instead of chasing every possibility that appeared. He often described success as avoiding unnecessary distractions. Most great achievements are not the result of doing 100 things reasonably well. They are the result of doing a few important things exceptionally well. This idea shaped his investing philosophy. He didn't need hundreds of investments. He needed a handful of excellent ones. The same principle applies to life. A few meaningful friendships, a few worthwhile projects, a few deeply held values. Quality almost always outlasts quantity. Chapter 14. The Partnership That Changed Investing. When people think about Warren Buffett, they often think about Charlie Munger. And when they think about Charlie Munger, they think about Warren Buffett. Their partnership became one of the most successful in business history. Yet what made it remarkable was not that they always agreed. It was that they respected each other's thinking. Charlie challenged Buffett. Buffett challenged Charlie. Each encouraged the other to examine assumptions rather than defend opinions. Charlie helped shift Buffett's philosophy. Benjamin Graham had taught Buffett to buy wonderful bargains. Charlie encouraged him to buy wonderful businesses. The difference seems subtle, but it transformed Berkshire Hathaway. Instead of constantly searching for statistically cheap companies, they focused on businesses with durable competitive advantages, outstanding management, and the ability to grow for decades. That change produced extraordinary results. Their partnership reminds us that wisdom often grows through thoughtful conversation, not arguments, not ego, but honest discussions where both people seek the truth rather than victory. Perhaps the greatest partnerships in life are built this way, not by finding someone who agrees with everything you say, but by finding someone who helps you think better. Chapter 15, The Quiet Power of Compounding. Most people think of compounding as something that happens only with money. Charlie Munger saw it everywhere. Knowledge compounds. Experience compounds. Friendships compound. Good habits compound. Even kindness compounds. A single good decision may not seem important today. Neither does reading 10 pages of a thoughtful book, or choosing patience over impulse, or admitting a mistake instead of defending it. But over years, these small choices begin working together. The gap between two people often isn't created by one dramatic event. It is created by thousands of ordinary decisions repeated consistently. Charlie never searched for dramatic breakthroughs. He searched for steady improvement. 1% better today. Another small improvement tomorrow. Eventually, those improvements become impossible to ignore. This is why patience mattered so much to him. Compounding cannot be rushed. Whether building wealth, building wisdom, or building character, time remains one of your greatest allies. Those who respect time allow compounding to work quietly on their behalf. Those who constantly interrupt the process often prevent it from ever reaching its full potential. Chapter 16, A Life Worth Studying. Charlie Munger lived for nearly a century. He witnessed wars, economic booms, financial crises, technological revolutions. Entire industries rise and disappear. Yet through all those changes, certain principles remained remarkably constant. Think independently. Continue learning. Avoid unnecessary mistakes. Act with integrity. Remain patient. Protect your reputation. Stay curious. These ideas are not complicated, but they require discipline. Perhaps that is why they are so rare. Charlie's life reminds us that success is not built through constant excitement. It is built through consistent wisdom. He never tried to appear extraordinary. He simply tried to make fewer mistakes than most people. Over many decades, that proved to be an extraordinary strategy. And maybe that is the greatest lesson of all. The goal is not to become the smartest person in the room. The goal is to become the person who continues learning long after everyone else believes they already know enough. Because wisdom is never finished. It is built, one thoughtful decision at a time. Charlie Munger, The Psychology of Better Thinking. Part 5, The Legacy of a Lifetime. Chapter 17, Success Leaves Clues. Charlie Munger never claimed to have discovered magic. He never promised a shortcut to wealth. He never sold the illusion that success could be achieved overnight. Instead, he quietly pointed toward something much more powerful: reality. He believed that success leaves clues. If you want to become a better investor, study great investors. If you want to become a better leader, study great leaders. If you want to become a wiser human being, study people who lived wisely. The answers have always been there, hidden inside history, hidden inside books, hidden inside the lives of extraordinary people. Most people simply refuse to slow down long enough to notice them. Charlie spent his entire life looking for those clues. Every mistake became a lesson. Every success became another opportunity to ask, what can I learn from this? That simple habit transformed an already brilliant mind into one of the wisest thinkers of his generation. Chapter 18, The Rare Investor Who Never Stopped Learning. Many people become less curious as they grow older. Charlie became more curious, even after decades of success, even after building enormous wealth, even after becoming one of the world's most respected investors. He remained a student. That may have been his greatest strength. He understood that knowledge has no finish line. Every new technology, every scientific discovery, every great biography, every historical event added another piece to his understanding of the world. He wasn't reading because someone expected him to. He read because curiosity had become part of who he was. Imagine living nearly 100 years while never losing your desire to learn. That kind of curiosity keeps the mind young. It creates humility. It reminds us that there is always another lesson waiting to be discovered. Perhaps the greatest investment Charlie ever made wasn't in a company. It was in his own mind. Chapter 19, Character Outlasts Wealth. Fortunes rise. Fortunes fall. Markets boom. Markets crash. Entire industries appear and disappear. But character remains. Charlie believed that integrity was not something you practiced only when it was convenient. It was something you carried with you every single day. When nobody was watching, when nobody would know, when honesty required sacrifice. He admired people who could be trusted with both success and failure. Because money often reveals character rather than creating it. A dishonest person with wealth rarely becomes honest. A generous person with wealth often becomes even more generous. Character quietly shapes every decision we make. It influences the people we attract, the opportunities we receive, the reputation we build. Charlie knew that wealth without character was fragile, but character combined with patience could create a legacy that lasted for generations. Chapter 20, The Final Conversation. Imagine sitting across the table from Charlie Munger. There are no cameras, no reporters, no stock tickers flashing across television screens. Just a quiet conversation. You ask him the question millions of people have asked in one form or another. What is the secret to success? He smiles, not because the question is foolish, but because people are usually expecting a complicated answer. Instead, he might simply say, read every day, think independently, stay curious, avoid obvious mistakes, choose your friends carefully, protect your reputation, lie below your means, keep learning, remain patient, and never stop improving. None of those ideas sound revolutionary. That is precisely why they are so often ignored. Wisdom rarely arrives wearing bright colors. More often, it whispers, patiently waiting for someone willing to listen. Closing narration. Charlie Munger never wanted to be remembered simply as a billionaire, or as Warren Buffett's business partner, or even as one of history's greatest investors. He wanted people to think better, because better thinking creates better decisions. Better decisions create better lives. His lessons extend far beyond Wall Street. They apply to families, businesses, friendships, careers, and every important decision we make. He reminded us that intelligence without discipline is dangerous. Knowledge without humility is incomplete. And success without character is temporary. Perhaps the greatest lesson Charlie Munger leaves behind is that wisdom is available to anyone willing to pursue it. Not through shortcuts, not through luck, but through a lifetime of reading, thinking, observing, learning, and patiently becoming a little wiser each day. The market will always change. Technology will continue to evolve. Entire industries will rise and fall. But the principles that guided Charlie Munger remain timeless. Think clearly, act honestly, learn continuously, stay patient, protect your reputation, and never underestimate the extraordinary power of a well-trained mind. Because in the end, the greatest investment you will ever make is the investment you make in yourself. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the life and wisdom of Charlie Munger. If this documentary inspired you, consider subscribing to The Finance Savvy for more timeless documentaries about the world's greatest investors, entrepreneurs, and thinkers. And remember, the more wisely you think today, the better your decisions will become tomorrow.